Alright, guys, I'm gonna go over. I remember a comic I remember from the '80s, and I never thought to even look on YouTube for any of this. Apparently, there's a bunch of videos of guys going over this series, man. This is one, like, I had brought up Strike Force Moratori as one of the best superhero comics of the '80s where they did something different. Okay, it gets lost with Watchmen and Dark Knight, but you had Strike Force Motor, you had Grendel, right, from the same company, of course, Matt Wagner. You had Elementals, and of course the guy who created Elementals, who actually drew the pencils for it, Bill Willingham, just like Matt Wagner, he went on to become a much bigger creator. Uh, but this comic, I remember always liking. This was like one of my favorites. I lost a bunch of them. You had a lot of attempts to try to like do superheroes differently. Of course, I had mentioned the most famous examples. Elementals was right off the bat. Elementals was really cool because Bill essentially it wasn't just like random stuff. Everything in this universe of the elementals is supernatural based. Okay, but basically, this guy, this sorcerer, all the creatures, all the villains, all supernatural abilities of the villains and of the heroes who are the elementals. These guys, these people, are all based off of this shadow spear, or I think at one point it was called the Spear of Destiny. Also, Elementals is extremely violent. Okay, you could classify this as horror. This is like a horror superhero comic. In fact, the very origin of the Elementals, of course, earth, air, fire, and water. Of course, with the Chinese, you would have wood in there, but this is the Greek, the Western version. Each of these characters are people who essentially die. This guy, he gets buried in an avalanche. I believe, he falls to his death. I don't remember. I don't have the first issue, but he basically dies, like, falling to his death in air. She drowns, and the other woman in this, the blonde, right? She is burned to death, and so they become like these elementals, which are they're actually made by the supernatural forces to be a counter to this guy here, this sorcerer Saker, right? Like a prophecy or something. So these are technically undead characters, and you see that too. They don't when they're grievously wounded. Okay, many times they are horribly injured, where a regular person would be dead, and they regenerate rather painfully. So especially this guy, of course, the masculine man in the group, because he's sort of like a young nerdy kid. He tends to get the worst of it, but they all get their licks in. The other thing too about elementals is that they get their asses kicked a lot. This guy easily beats them when they finally fight him the first time, um, and they don't always get along. Their personalities are not always the best, which is kind of cool for a comic as well. Okay, when they do work together, obviously they cause havoc. But whatever, I had mentioned these things, and it's kind of funny that the third issue here, and I found these for $1 in the local comic store. I had so many of these elemental issues, and they're all gone, all lost in a flood. It even mentions this is when you had a lot of the interaction when people wrote letters. Right? Of course, Comico, remember Comico, the comic company, right? Norristown, Pennsylvania. But there's a guy here basically angry that one of the characters actually killed somebody and got away with it. Um, and of course, this guy, Bill responds, and this is kind of cool because remember, this is a big deal, right? Now nobody gives a shit. But back in the '80s, the direct market where these comics now, you can make these comics black and white or color. You could actually get stuff. There's no code. You can sort of push the envelope, and they did for the better. Um, well, you had the amount of violence in here. Of course, Bill makes a point, right? Right. Right. He goes, we're gonna show violence, and we're gonna show the consequences and the results of violence. Okay. Now I would argue too. I mean, Marvel and DC, we're fairly violent. Marvel even more so. I think but not like at the level of this thing. This is like I said, this is like a horror, like an '80s horror, gory horror, like supernatural creature, like Lovecraftian type superhero action. And he makes a good point that the character killed another character in self-defense, so that's not murder. Anyway, and looking at the art, Bill, of course, is known. What was it, Fables? He got big with Fables, but Elementals lasted a while. Even when Comico got rejuvenated, and it was always a very violent comic, a very gory comic. And there's Fathom. There's the water elemental woman. She's a Jap. and she's not Japanese, if you know what I mean. That's what the character is. She's that. And like, here's an example. Here's an enemy they had. Right, the false snapped her neck. And that's the thing too, Bill too. Like the women in this comic, they're in the middle of the fight. Right, they fight like the men do, and there's no mercy for anybody in this, any gender, age, anything. Everybody ends up getting killed horribly. Like there's Vortex, he's all messed up. And yeah, these women, like Seika had like this all women team who all died. And like they mentioned, oh, okay, all right, here's the victim. Looks like Vortex. This is this guy, this character here, the air elemental guy. And she's describing, oh, he's a mess. Could you be a bit more specific? All right, here goes. The victim looks like Vortex. He suffered massive blood loss, depressed fractures of the skull, subdural hematoma, multiple lacerations to the face, neck, and anterior torso, at least 2 compound fractures of the left forearm. He has avulsions to the right thigh, the lower right quadrant of his abdomen, a complete avulsion of the left upper abdomen that has exposed. And was like, I think I'm going to be sick. She's just throwing up. That has exposed eviscerated intestinal tissue. There's a total avulsion of the groin. There's a lot more. Do you want me to continue? Hell no. Just put the thing in a body bag. Right. Now, of course, he's not dead. So this is what I'm talking about. This Seika has a demon that apparently has been summoned that he lost control over. Oh my, sister girl, doesn't do too good. Yeah, a lot of the women that work for him die. But this is the villain. Okay? That's what I always say too. To me, the best stories. The Japanese did this a lot, but Bill did it as well. When your villains are more powerful than your heroes, I always like that, because that, these people have to work even harder just to make ends meet. Anyway, and all the personalities. She, like I said, she's like a rich girl. She's doesn't want to kill anybody. She used to be a cop. She was a hard-nosed cop. So, and of course the kid, the little nerdy kid, becomes the giant muscle of the group. Very interesting. Oh well, they're dead. Oh, and also very, a lot of political stuff in it. Of course, the government is involved. There's the agent in here, Porter Scott, the long-suffering agent. Look, there's Ratman. Ratman was pretty cool. Ratman was one of the destroyers, the rival team, who was like a pretty nasty dude. He's a Ratman. Well, yeah, I don't think Bill draws anymore. I really should read an interview with him. So, but at the time, Matt Wagner was doing Mage, right? So, like the old days. And you see, like, you're seeing, like I said, Mage, right? Matt Wagner. You're seeing, what is this? Evangeline. What is this? Creator of Mage and Charles Dixon. Who is Charles Dixon? Well, that's Chuck Dixon. Chuck, of course, becomes a big dude later in the 90s and the 2000s. The amount of stuff he works on. But right now it's in 84. So you're seeing the upcoming people in the thing. And what is this? Oh, man, look. 1984. Look, the official comic adaptation of the popular Japanese animated series Macross. Oh, wow, dude. Comico is going to make a Macross comic back in 1984. Wow. This is an in joke for us Robotech Macross people. Obviously, this was gonna change. And I remember comics interview. I remember this. And you get the elementals, right? There you go. Like air, earth, fire, water. You know. And also, I always liked about Comico was that their covers, they wouldn't just have like the regular cover. The covers were all wraparound covers, so they were like big pieces of artwork. You know. Anyway, go to the next issue. Now it's interesting too. This is issue 3, so like this is basically 4 or 5. This is 2 issues later, and it's 1986. So 2 issues came out in the 2 years in between this. You know, Jack Herman, Rich Rankin, remember them? And you see now that they defeated Saker for now. And you see how the characters are all going, the government is prodding them, trying to figure out what they're all about. They're all kind of traumatized people. They're technically undead. Right? And of course, you know, the one thing in the 80s too, everyone forgets about this. The televangelists, you had all those, the hell, Tammy Faye, Baker, the guy, the other dude, who was the guy? I've sinned. Like, I forgot, you know, you had all these televangelists. They were stupid. You know, you had Jerry Falwell. They were kind of silly. I don't give a shit about them, okay? They weren't the problem, okay? Even though they were, oh, these are the problems. They always were lampooned by, of course, Willingham at the time is probably left the center. I don't care. I don't think he is now, though. Like Mike Barrett, like a Mike Barrett, right? There's another guy. But what I'm saying is that, like, they made a big deal about this in the 80s. This wasn't, these people didn't go in, this was really not a big deal. These people didn't put this shit on you that you have now. Just say, and once again, the very violent women. Like I said, women are not. There's no like chivalry or anything in there. Anyone can die at any time. So, in this case here, you have this creature, this Lovecraftian kind of friggin' creature absorbing these people in the military base where the elementals are being interrogated. Horrible. Like I said, this is a horror like elementals is like horror superheroes. You know, they're always facing like evil monsters, and the collateral damage is huge. And this guy, Agent Porter Scott, this dude goes through hell, literally, in the comic, trying to be the liaison for these people. So, oh, look at Mage, look at Matt's art. Look how Matt's art was getting better, right? And Robotech. Wait a minute, what the hell, Robotech? What the hell is this? Where's Macross? The Macross saga. What are these other comics? We're gonna go over that now. And you see, like I said, very influenced by the horror stuff at the time, like From Beyond. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Women, like I said, in this, women are in all kinds of roles, you know, as things, and they die horribly just like the men do. So very that's equality. Just anyway, I just wanted to go over this. I don't know. Bill doesn't really talk about elementals now. I don't think they're gonna bring it up. I don't think it's gonna be revived. I don't know. It had its time, but there was a lot of elementals comics. I believe there were 2 series of this, and they had solo series. But look at the month. Look at the hype page for April, March, April, right, of 1986. Yeah, 1986. Ah, that was the time, man. This was the cool stuff to get into. You see Robotech. You see all the different Robotechs, Elementals, Elemental Special. I remember this with the kids. Oh, leave them kids alone. Now, I don't even talk about the kid. Don't want to talk about 2024. Anyway. And Morning Star, I liked her. She was kind of, she wasn't a bitch, but she was kind of like, she wasn't very warm, even though she's a fire element. Anyway, this is just a sample of it. Elementals, and just to round it out in terms of date of the 1986, remember early 86. Remember the Challenger? I remember this. It was winter. It was snow on the ground. It was a half day at my junior high school, and I left. My dad picked me up And I found about this on the radio. Remember that? Krista McCall, she was the teacher that won the prize to be going to space. Anyway, it's the ATs and elementals, man. I'm gonna start looking at the videos, see what other people got to say. See if they said the same things I did about this very underrated '80s series.